what you are. Say it. Out loud. Say it. Romanticism.
Gaia and Sarah
save the world. All right, welcome to episode.
Oh my god,
8?
it's really happening again. Is it 8 or is it 9?
Not. Wait, I really don't know.
Okay, so welcome to episode 8 of
Gaia and Sarah
Save the World.
Tonight.
We're yes, late in the evening. We are finally doing an episode on romanticism after talking about it for like 150 years.
Yeah. So this could possibly end up being our longest episode ever. We were thinking about just making it a separate season,
like
all
a
by
whole
itself.
Season. But I don't know, we organized it really well, so maybe
Yeah, we basically wrote like a book report.
Yeah, this is super important for about 100 billion point two reasons. But mainly because relationships are such a normal part, romantic relationships are such a normal part of our lives.
Yes.
So anything that affects that is going to greatly affect our quality of life.
Right. And I think a main theme of my life has been modeling all of my relationships after ideas I got from movies and books and TV instead of ever learning what a functional relationship even is.
And on my end, it was very much the same with that, except not caring to learn. Literally, I don't care to learn what a healthy, normal, functional...
almost like, even if this is bad, this is what I want.
Oh yeah, I remember... Why am I doing that? I remember saying verbatim 2012, about a month before I moved to Los Angeles, being like, I don't give a fuck about ever having a happy... normal relationship. I just want to be with someone that can roleplay as a vampire. I literally said that, and it wasn't me being dramatic or drinking.
This is true.
I was just being honest with what I wanted.
So I think the best way to start is to kind of define romanticism historically, kind of why this concept arose. So I went to school, to college.
She's
for
college educated.
English. So I actually had to study a bunch of this shit, and it was funny because one day Gaia and I were talking, and she's like, do you know what romanticism is? And I'm like, yes, of course, it's 18th century, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, what it is now. And then my mind exploded, realizing the way this concept has morphed over time.
Yeah.
So, the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition is a literary, artistic, and philosophical movement originating in the 18th century, characterized chiefly by a reaction against neoclassicism. So, everything that came previously, these authors were like, no.
We're doing this different.
Yeah, so there's an emphasis on imagination and emotions, marked especially in English literature by sensibility, meaning sensitivity, using your senses, and the use of autobiographical material, an exaltation of the primitive and the common man, and appreciation of external nature, interest in the remote, a predilection for melancholy, and the use in poetry of older verse forms. So
basically
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein falls into this, a lot of horror writing, Poe, stuff like that.
The dark, tragic, all that stuff.
Yeah, sad, tragic, but all focused on feeling more so than reason and logic.
Yeah, basically making decisions based off of spark chemical feelings instead of being is this actually a good idea, or does this make sense?
Right. So, the intention of romanticism in literature was not to create unrealistic relationship ideals. It was just a different approach to storytelling, but just the subtle effect of it was to create this kind of desire for fucked up relationships.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, it's art, and art isn't supposed to always be healthy or literal or anything like that. And so it wasn't, but then it's like something came out of that has now shaped our entire reality present day. Well, you have a hair right here, and I don't want that to be.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have written, or I don't know if we got this from.
That's from my brain.
Okay.
Even though it sounds like it could be from the dictionary.
Well, it also sounds like it could be from my brain because
Same
we think
thing.
the same thing. So she wrote, an overall theme to Romanticism is that love conquers all, including reason, including the need to speak to your partner, including the need to develop yourself separately from your partner. So...
Right. So we compiled a list of some examples of films and books that kind of prominently show what Romanticism is.
And again, like, going back to, like, where it came from, like, this being, like, an art movement, it was that, but it has bled into, like, normal day society of shaping the way that we think that relationships are supposed to be and developing ourselves and desirable traits in another person. So we're not, like dissing, like, the art movement, but we're trying to show that something that was never meant to be literal has become literal, and it's having, like, a very toxic effect on every single one of us.
Right.
So, jumping into familiar film and book examples.
Yes.
Obviously, the first one.
Twilight.
Which is why we chose that for our, like, cinematic intro to the episode.
Right.
And just a disclaimer, like, right offhand, I love Twilight, so even though we are very clearly, like, making fun of it and using it as an example, like, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Like, I love Twilight. I can separate the fact that it's a fictional story about a non-human person attempting to be in a relationship with a human person. Like, there's nothing about that situation where you should extract examples and go, oh, well, this was great here, let me implement this into my life. Like, that's, if we're going to be literal about what Twilight is, it was about someone in a predatory situation falling in love with someone that they would normally be killing.
Right, which is really messed up. But at the time when I first read it, I wasn't making that distinction that I'm making now.
No, I mean, I think when I read it, I was 19 or 20.
Yeah, we were really young. I was like, that's exactly what I want, and I want it immediately.
Yeah, and when I read Twilight, that was like a shaping moment of my life, because I remember, like, locking myself in my room, like, just doing nothing but reading all the books, and when it came to an end, just bawling my fucking eyes out because the story was over. There was no more like Edward to, like, uncover, and it was back to reality, which is not even half as exciting as these stories.
Right. I was so addicted to that story. So a quote that just exemplifies what we are talking about is when Bella says, and this is in the movie, I don't know if she says this exact line for line in the book, but
I can't remember either.
She says to Edward, I'd rather die than stay away from you. Yeah, and I felt that way about people.
I felt that way too, and the thing is, a lot of people have felt that way. It's very relatable, but what that burning desire and, like, unable to function without another person is, it's not love. It literally has nothing to do with love.
Right.
It's the definite... Oh, maybe should we get to that later?
We'll break down everything in detail. Okay. So, another example, which this story actually came about before the, like, 18th century and stuff, but Romeo and Juliet.
It's a classic.
Just a classic example of a toxic relationship that's kind of exemplified. And again, it's not even necessarily, like, the intention of the original playwright for it to be, like, idealized, but it becomes that way. Like, this feeling like you want to die for your lover.
Yeah, it's like this all, like, high stakes romance, like, tragedy to bliss to, like, suffering to accomplishment. Like, these are great in stories because they make you feel things in extremes. Right. But, like, if you were to look at, like, God, I keep going into what we're going to analyze. Okay, I'm going to...
Next.
Okay.
50 Shades of Grey.
believe it or not, there are people out there that see the fucking relationship behind the two characters as like, oh, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Like, that's unbelievable to me, but I'm trying not to be super judgmental because I also, like, I wanted to date Edward Cullen.
Right.
So,
and Christian Grey, I have to think of his name, is based on Edward Cullen, you know, and just like, it's a fan fiction.
He's like Daddy Dom Edward Cullen. Yeah, like people see it, they see like the like successful, powerful, attractive man who can have it all, but he took an interest in that one normal girl.
Right.
And like it's the same pattern with Romeo and Juliet, like
right.
Edward and Bella. It's like these crazy, like unhealthy power dynamics, and like everything's on the line. Like it's literally the same with every single character we're about to go over.
Mm-hmm.
Buffy, Spike, and Angel, like the love triangle situation if you watched Buffy.
Love triangle, and again, power dynamic where, yeah, she has powers, but like they're extremely like supernatural, ancient beings with like, 100 years on her at least, you know, and that push-pull type of dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
A big one, which I see this relationship like put up on a pedestal all the time, and I just think it's so gross.
It's seriously like,
it's the grossest one to me. The Joker and Harley Quinn.
like,
Ew.
okay, like when I was like 23, 24, I was a massive Harley Quinn fan. This is kind of like a little bit before like the Harley Quinn like phenomenon happened. And I've always been into the Joker since I was a child. I romanticized him. I loved that he was insane. So like I can relate to these people that are still doing that, but the difference is like I could be like, I recognize that I like this and these people are fucked. And be like, I don't want a boyfriend that will do that to me.
Right.
But there's a problem when like, especially in the alternative world, where people are like, I'm just looking for my Joker, and like all that stuff. It's like you're looking for a psychopath to beat you.
You want to be manipulated and controlled?
Yeah, like you want to be a toy to someone. Like, what's going on here?
No. So it's not always like a supernatural relationship or a comic book relationship. There's lots of like normal examples. And to me, those are almost more dangerous because it's like harder to kind of recognize that it's like weird and not okay and different.
People do it with like celebrity couples, and it's mind-blowing to me because you don't know these people. Literally every single thing that you see in interviews or posted is all orchestrated. It's all controlled content. You literally don't know any couple that you see online. So to be like, I want to be like them, you don't even know what they are.
Right, exactly. So an example of that is Ross and Rachel in Friends, which I've actually never seen Friends, but apparently they have a very like push-pull, never on the same page, back and forth dynamic.
Yeah, it's like, but it's, I think the reason why people get so into them is because of their history, is because like one always comes through for the other, but it's not quite the same time, and you're like rooting for them, and I don't know, like it's, I think it was relatable for a lot of people because a lot of people have had like the push-pull relationship, but that's not healthy.
Right.
That's like misery.
Right. And then the last one is the fucking Notebook.
Yeah.
That's right.
This kills me because like I saw the Notebook, I bawled my eyes out, I loved it, but now that I'm older, like a lot older, God, when did that fucking come out?
I waited a long time to see the Notebook, and it was overhyped, so by the time I saw it, I was like, that shit is so dumb.
I think I saw that, I feel like that came out when I was in high school.
I feel like it came out in like 2004.
So yeah.
But I don't know. So we actually included a quote from an article, which we'll put the source in the description. But the biggest misunderstanding is that passion is love. In the movie, you see that Noah completely ignores Allie's no, which is completely disrespectful. He invades her personal space repeatedly, which we could call harassment. He threatens to commit suicide, which is total manipulation. And then there's complete verbal abuse. But it's happening so often that it's getting minimized or normalized as okay. Then on her side, there's physical abuse. Their passion is actually volatile. He doesn't value her boundaries or her feelings, and yet we think this is true love that he wrote her 365 letters rather than getting the picture, letting go, and moving on.
And that's one of the common themes in all of this is like someone doing something that violates boundaries or disrespects another person, so it takes the relationship to an extreme low bad place.
Right.
And then to get out of that, to dig out, you have to do this massive over the top demonstration to show like, no, it's not that. And that's how it goes like this. It's the fucking roller coaster
Yes.
effect. So the reason why those like big moments feel so good is because you're literally coming from like the trenches of hell
Right.
into something great. But you have to go to that bad place in order for the high to feel that good. That's
Yeah.
what toxic relationships are.
That's exactly right. So those are some examples, just kind of give some context to what we'll be talking about. And then we're going to dissect everything about romanticism. But first, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes, please subscribe.
Yeah, please. It helps us a lot. And
It
we
really
really
does.
appreciate it.
Something that goes hand in hand with romanticism and these high stakes relationships and basing everything on another person and making like everything in the world revolving around romance, the only way that you can participate in that is if you have a lack of self, which is what the core of codependency is.
Right.
We didn't really talk about codependency a lot, but codependency a lot of times people think is like, what would be like a common example that people think it is?
I mean, people think it's when like you just are like relying on your partner to like help you with stuff, but it's really like deeper than that. Like you're relying on your partner to like have intrinsic value, and without your relationship you don't value yourself.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, you can be like surface level codependent, but that's really just like a partnership. But
Yeah.
what codependency really means is like you don't function outside of a relationship.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that is normalized in our culture, so that it seems like you're supposed to be sad, you're supposed to be lost, you're supposed to always be looking for a partner.
Yeah.
But what I've learned through like, you know, the past like whatever amount of time in therapy about everything related to like human relationships is that codependency is a lack of self.
Yes.
Because you would not base all of your decisions around another person or, you know, bend over backwards for another person and do all of these things unless there's like a hole in you where something is missing. Because when you're
Right.
a whole, complete person, you don't put yourself on the line like that because you have like boundaries and self-respect and you don't need another person. And that's what's
Right.
so important to understand about what healthy love is versus romanticized, like toxic relationships. Healthy love is recognizing that you don't need the other person to be okay. And we don't get that message from books, movies, especially music. We keep like hearing these like sayings like, I need you to live and stuff like that. And the thing is, all these are very relatable things that I feel like we all feel at some point in time. But just because you feel it doesn't mean that that's like A, what reality is, and B, what you should be making decisions based on.
Right.
So
It's really hard to establish a sense of self though, because our society doesn't just teach you to find yourself in other people, it also teaches you to find yourself in materialism and in your career
Yep.
and in your social circles and your social status. So it's not just your romantic relationship, it's like coming at you from all directions. So looking inward is really like an active choice that you have to make all the time.
it's a journey.
Yeah, it's a whole journey. But when you are starting out from a place of not having done any self-discovery, which who has when you start dating people?
And we don't even live in a society that encourages you to do that. It's just like basically like find someone, get married, have kids, like all of these things instead of, hey, take the time away from everything to figure out who the fuck you are, and that takes a lot of time.
Absolutely. I started being in long-term relationships when I was 15.
Same
you
here.
know, and I did that like back to back to back for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize until really like the last couple years of my life that I had a lot of inward exploring to do. So when you're finding yourself obsessed with, especially a partner, since that's kind of the topic we're on today, it's really time to just pause and,
it really is.
and look inside. So an example we gave is a person entering a relationship and then their social media or their whole life starts to revolve around their partner and their relationship. So you start saying we instead of I. So you literally become enmeshed and you literally become two people instead of one person.
Yeah, you become almost like a relationship entity where, like, as before you entered the relationship, you were your own person. You had your interests of your own. You did things on your own time. But then when you see someone who's entering like a codependent or enmeshed relationship, everything that they do, everything that they breathe becomes about their partner and then us and our relationship, and there's nothing out there, next to nothing outside of that. And it's so obvious to see. Like, just get on any social media and scroll, like, you know, those people that don't have really much of anything going on outside of their relationship, and that's what that is. It's a lack of self.
I've been in a relationship in the past where I used to literally say, this person is the other half of my soul in a different human body.
Yep. But these are all like lines we've been fed from such an early age.
That's an idea.
But it's like almost forced on us. Like, you're supposed to feel this way. This is what it's like. That's so not real.
Right.
Like, I hate to be the person to like shit on romance, but it isn't real. All of these weird lines about being complete and finding the other half, and it's not real. That is not reality.
It's not. So that's what being enmeshed is, and what not having a self and being codependent is. And because we're kind of taught that these patterns are just like desirable, we're not even taught that they're normal. We're taught to strive for them.
Yeah, like that's the goal.
Yeah, so because of that, it's really hard to navigate a relationship, and that's when a lot of toxic patterns start happening. And then the toxic patterns happen, but those are romanticized too.
Yeah, so it's like no matter what, like, you are being pushed towards having a really unhealthy relationship by society. Like, in everywhere you turn, you were like being either pressured to, or these things are normalized, or it becomes a goal, or and no one is even like aware that these things are so unhealthy.
Yeah. So because of that, breakups are like debilitating. You're not gonna get better. You're gonna feel like you're dying.
Yeah, and that's literally what like having like almost like a codependent withdrawal feels like. After a breakup like that, where you've invested like your entire identity into the relationship or the other person, because if that's what you've done, like you've withdrawn from your friends, you've withdrawn from your dreams, and you're just, everything's kind of just been on the line for like this person, then when it ends, you don't have anything left, and you just have that empty hole in you because of the lack of self.
Yep. Sucks.
Yeah, like breakups are supposed to suck.
They do suck. They're supposed to be sad.
You're supposed to be sad. You're supposed to be depressed. You're supposed to mourn, but it's not supposed to be like your entire life is destroyed.
Right. So another like side effect, weird consequence of romanticism is constantly having FOMO.
Yes.
So fear of missing out with other people, because as we'll go into more detail later too, but romanticism teaches us that it should always feel like a whirlwind, like caught up, swept away, like thrown off your feet or whatever stuff they say.
Like you can't sleep, you can't eat.
Right.
Like everything is like basically like what they describe and what you can experience.
Right.
Is that it feels like you're on drugs.
Yeah.
And because they have literally studied what someone's brain looks like when they're falling in love versus someone who does cocaine, and they're nearly identical.
Yep.
And some of that is normal.
Right.
Like the newness, the infatuation, but that's what it is. It's newness and infatuation. That's not actually love.
So when that starts going away, it can make you question if you're even still in love anymore. Because if you think only those very heightened emotions and almost crazy feelings are what love is, then when it fades away, you start questioning your relationship and you're not sure if you're even still in love anymore. And while that can sometimes mean you're seeing things about your newer partner that you're like, maybe not. It can also just mean that things are settling down, but a lot of people will hop to another relationship as soon as that happens because they think that they aren't in love anymore.
And that's another way that people deal with breakups, and it shows the lack of self, the lack of like ability to be alone, which is codependency, is when you see someone go through a breakup and they're literally immediately latched on to a new person that's occupying their emotional space.
Yes.
This is what codependency is, because you can't be alone. Like you're not even processing what happened. You're latching on to another person, which really is going to end up hurting them because you don't actually care about them.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. Romanticism has created this environment for us to always be involved with people, to never be alone, to never find out who we are. It's terrible.
It is. It's really, really shitty.
And, you know, there's an understanding that goes with it too, because it is so much easier if you're going through a bad breakup, instead of, you know, doing the real hard work that helps you heal from it and become a better person, to just find someone new and exciting and just bury it and like never deal with what happened.
I did that for years.
I did that for years.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's like, to me it's childish, and it's so cruel to whatever person is basically
absolutely.
like let's be real, you're using the person to not deal with your feelings for the previous person.
Right.
How awful is that, to use a human being almost like drugs?
Yeah, it's really awful. And we're doing it a lot of times with great intentions, and we're not aware that we're doing it, but that's what we're doing.
Here's how to be aware. Did you just get out of a long-term relationship? Don't get involved with another person for a while.
Right. And if you do meet another person, just go so fucking slow. Like, or maybe just, it's fine. There's other people. Just skip it.
Yeah. Like, you just have to be realistic with that.
I just think it sets up, like, a bad dynamic, and you can get past it, but it's going to take, like, therapy. You know, like, it's going to be really hard down the line to get past that dynamic and the patterns we lay down in the very beginning of a relationship, whether we want it to affect us or not. It does. Another thing that kind of mimics that, or goes hand in hand with that, is constantly, like, needing struggle in your relationships. Now, this is me, queen of this, like, feeling the most in love when my relationship is, like, the most fucked up.
And that's the thing, is I don't think that it's a conscious thought of, like, I want to fight with this person. It's not. That's, like, underneath the surface. That's unconscious. But what you're, like fiending for is the high that comes out of after you resolve that low.
Right.
Because then it's like the honeymoon phase all over again.
Yes. And that's what I mistook for the meaning of passion for so long. I thought, I mean, I remember, like, justifying this to my friends, probably to my mom, like, yeah, we fight, but it's just because we're passionate and we just love each other so much. Like, the stakes are so high.
And we're both just really stubborn. We're both just really hard-headed. No, we're both just, like, fucking toxic. Like,
yeah.
I've been there too. I feel like this is almost like everyone has a story like this.
Oh, yeah.
Where we're like, yeah, we fucking fight, but we always come back together and have amazing sex. Well, you know why the sex is that good and the chemical release is that good? It's because you literally just went through, like, an abusive dynamic. So you went from feeling like you wanted to die to relief, which feels like amazing.
And that feels romantic, and it feels like magical and good, and it isn't. And, you know, we just, like, idealize our own relationships. Like, I'm just thinking of times in my past where it was just like screaming at another person.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the rain even.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? Like, and just having it feel, like,
and it felt
so heightened.
And it felt, like, fun. Like, that's what sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I remember having fights. Oh my god, am I really gonna go down this road? I've had some of the most dramatic, like, cinematic style fights.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I think at the time, like, some part of me loved it. Even though I was like crying and like heartbroken.
But it felt like love. Like that felt like the kind of love that I was seeing represented in the media I was consuming.
Yeah,
It's just so weird.
It's like this whole belief of like, oh, you just make me crazy because I love you so much. No.
Yes, well, it's like that encapsulates all of it, like screaming into something, I just love you so much, but you're like so mad and full of rage towards them.
That's not love. It's literally not even related to love. That's like an addiction to chaos.
Yes.
Because of the highs.
Yeah.
Like, I remember at some point long ago, thinking that it was like really romantic and endearing that like my boyfriend at the time, who I guess we had like broken up, stalked me. Like stalked me across the country. And I remember just being like, it's just because he loves me. No, that's like a psychopath.
Yes.
But in my head and what we're fed through these stories, it's like, oh, of course he's willing to do fucking insane things to get my attention. It's because he loves me, and that's what happens when you're crazy in love. That's what happens when someone doesn't respect boundaries and could possibly be a sociopath.
Well, I remember being involved with someone who was an addict and, you know, a very helpless and in need person, and feeling like that desperation of that person and how fucked up they were. I was like, I'm fucked up too, and I like how fucked up you are.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like romanticizing like the bad.
Yeah. Yeah, like literally that. And so of course, set up from minute one to be a struggle.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Like, I just think that like a lot of times we confuse these chemical high feelings that we can get from people as what love is. Or like, it's like we see it as like, oh, I felt that way so quickly. That's because they're the one. It like we take it to be like this positive meaning, when actually, if you know anything about psychology, it tells you that when you meet someone and you feel an immediate, like unspeakable attraction, you feel intoxicated by them, you feel like you already know them, this is actually the definition of what a trauma bond is. But trauma bonds have been romanticized through these stories as love at first sight and like unspeakable passion and knowing another person and meeting your like other half. It's not. That's like actually a huge red flag that you should pay attention to. But we'll get into that later. Like trauma bonds.
Oh boy.
A lot of times the need for struggle comes from not actually having much connection with that person.
Yeah.
On a deeper level outside of like superficial stuff or like lust. And the reason why you're doing these things, so either consciously or subconsciously, to fight, to create like these high stakes, is because there's nothing actually binding you together. The only thing binding you together is the chemicals that come with chaos.
Yeah.
Underneath that, there's actually not love.
Yeah.
There's not like mutual goals, practicality in your relationship, security. So that's why you're addicted.
Right.
To suffering, to struggling, to tragic love.
You have to keep going through that cycle because you don't have anything other than that.
Yeah. And that's a huge sign that you actually don't love someone at all.
But think of the thrill of reading stories like that. Like, that's the point of this, is like reading stories about people in relationships like that is really thrilling and exciting.
Yeah. And you know what? It's entertaining. But so is watching like fucking movies with like aliens blowing up cities. Like, I just think we need to be able to differentiate like what's exciting and what is healthy.
It's like a suspension of disbelief issue, and we put together a list for things to look for at the end, but like when you're watching aliens blow up a city, you know that isn't reality, but when you're watching Edward and Bella, even though you know he's a fucking vampire, you're still like, I want that.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
That's so weird.
Because humans are addicted to and slaves to emotions. Yeah. That's kind of what humanity is. That's kind of what gives us the ability to create such amazing art. So it's like we just have to find a way to regulate it.
Well, in that search for self, like meditating will actually help you separate from your emotions. Like
meditation is so good for people that have a really hard time with regulating their emotions.
Yeah.
Like it has made, like I can't even talk about the difference that it has made in my life. Because when I feel like, when I'm starting to feel like crazy off in my emotions and just like feeling like pure chaos is going on, when I do like deep meditations, it's literally gone.
Yeah.
Like
because
like,
it's just like chemicals being released in your body,
and
it's not your mind.
When you think about that, it makes it easier to deal with. Like,
right.
One of the best things I've learned from therapy is that feelings are not reality.
Yep.
And it's so hard to take that in because we make decisions about our lives based on our feelings, but how do I say this? Your feelings aren't real.
Yeah.
They're more so telling about you as a person underneath the surface, but they actually aren't real depictions of your life or reality.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
It's so hard to process that.
And you don't have to totally ignore them, but it's more of a focus on noticing them and saying, that's how I'm reacting to this situation, and tracing it and saying,
yes.
I wonder why that's my reaction.
That's what's so important about like being introspective, is not just going, I feel angry, so I'm going to make a decision based on anger. It's, where is this coming from? Where have I felt like this before? Is this necessarily rational?
Right. And then making the decision.
Yeah.
Kind of a tangent, but important for navigating all this stuff.
Very.
All of these like bullet points that we're getting into now, we got from an article on from Time magazine. Yeah. So we've linked that article. We really just took the like bullet points, and we're just going to give our own examples of it, but it just encapsulated kind of all the aspects of romanticism really nicely. So thanks Time magazine for writing that article for us.
Made it so much easier.
Really appreciate it. So romanticism is deeply hopeful about marriage. Huge. To the point of like, I mean, this is so common, especially in the United States. I don't know about everywhere else, but like marriage is seen as like a milestone that you are going for, that you are going to accomplish. Like it is like this amazing feat. Like climb Mount Everest, also get married. Like these things are like the same.
It's seen as a necessity of life, as a sign of you're on the right path, you're a healthy person.
It's literally seen, like, especially for women, as something that means like you're successful.
That's part of the patriarchy effect, though, because it looks different for women versus men.
Right.
And women take it to a very personal level as to being chosen. And that's supposed to be like this moment where you are validated as a woman as being worthy, attractive, lovable, because a man chose to marry you. And I'm so happy that we're having conversations about this now, so that we can decenter marriage and decenter men. And that's not to say don't have relationships with men, don't get married to men, but stop centering your life around it, because it actually isn't that important.
Right. That's exactly right. Like, obviously, like, celebrating your love for somebody and wanting to enter into like a long-term relationship where you're adding like a different level of commitment, like obviously that's great, that's really cool, and like we're very privileged to be able to do that, but it's not like changing who you are. It's not adding or taking away like your intrinsic value. You're not better as a wife than as an unmarried woman, you know. And there's a lot of like bullshit patriarchy stuff, like why am I gonna go from a miss to a Mrs. and nothing happens to my fiance? That's stupid. You know, but you know, and tying our identities to like being a wife, like I am a wife.
What does that even mean? All that means is that you married a man, and that's literally one of the most common things. But women put marriage to men up on this pedestal. Like I said, it's about being chosen, to the point where they make it their identity that they're a wife.
People also think that marriage can fix a broken relationship. I filmed weddings for 3 years, and I have seen this in action, and it is not good. Like, I mean, I've seen the worst wedding was, I was actually doing photography for this one, not filming, but groom didn't even want to take photos with his wife, and she was crying. And we were like, it's your fucking wedding day. So I was the second shooter, and the main photographer, she's like, I don't even know what to do. Like, he doesn't want to be in the photos on their wedding day.
Why?
I don't know. Like, why even have a wedding?
I hate him.
The whole point is the photos. Like,
I mean, basically, that's why people have. Like,
I know. I'm not even like being funny. Like, that's just true. So, yeah, and you know, people try to get married within a certain timeline. When I've never had like a huge value on marriage, and then when I started filming weddings, I went through a period of time where I like was a hard no. Like, I was like, I am not getting married ever. I don't want to. So part of that is because like I was operating on like these ideas of marriage, and I was like, that's not for me. And now I've kind of adjusted the way I feel about it. But anyway, so many people like try to get married within a certain timeline, and I used to think that I would be married like by the time I was 25.
I think it's hilarious. Like, this is no offense to anyone who successfully got married like at 25 or younger and is still happily married.
Right.
But let's be real. Most people have no idea who the fuck they are at 25. So I feel like making like such a serious commitment like that is probably not very smart. And so I think I know people personally who've been very lucky with their decision in getting married younger, but that's based on luck.
Right. Or based on, you know, you happen to be two individuals who are truly willing to like put in work and work on self-development, you know.
But like, I think about who I was at 25. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, if I had gotten married to like my boyfriend at 25, I'm pretty sure we would have been divorced like less than a year later.
I don't even know. Oh yeah. We'd be divorced within like a month.
Yeah. And what's so funny about you saying like your views on marriage have changed is mine have too. I never had a desire to ever get married my entire life until, I don't know, when I was like 25 or no, maybe 26 or 27.
Yeah.
But like up until then, like it was even a problem in previous relationships of me being like, I don't ever want to get married, like that's just not me, and my partner's being like hurt by me saying that, to know that I'm saying it will never go to this place.
Right.
It just never was an interest of mine, you know, being someone who's not very traditional.
Right.
And then I really can't explain what happened around 26, 27. All of a sudden I was like, you know what, like maybe I do. But then I shifted way too extreme with it and was like, I want to be married. I don't want to be in a relationship unless like this is where it's going, which I don't even think there's anything wrong with thinking that way either. And now I feel like my views on relationships and love and commitment have been so drastically impacted that like if you would ask me like 2-3 years ago if I wanted to be married, I would say without a doubt yes, like that's so important to me. And now I don't know if that's something that I would even want to do, because like I don't know, I feel like it's weird. I feel like the romantic side of me very much died. Like it's not here anymore. And I feel like I'm more practical, but at the same time you can get married for practical reasons that aren't so romance driven. Right. So I don't know.
There's practical financial reasons, you know, if you want to you know, combine finances, combine opportunities, combine owning things together. Like a lot of that practical shit is why Ash and I want to get married. I mean, there's definitely like a romantic aspect to it for sure, but it's not like this idyllic romantic version of it. And even like the wedding that we eventually want to have is not like, I would never spend an exorbitant amount of money on a one-day party. Like that's just not, to me, it doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make sense to ask your loved ones to spend a lot of money traveling and buying clothes to wear to it, and to create a bunch of waste from an event like that. Like I think like huge weddings are really wasteful events, and I love I honestly love weddings. Like, I really liked filming weddings for years, and I still am like, I don't think we're putting the value in the right place with that.
That's another thing, is I think a lot of the reason that women get so, like, you know, like, amped up about wanting to get married and have the wedding and the dress and the ring and, like, you know,
It's
all
really
that stuff.
important for a day.
It's because you feel chosen. Back to what we were
Yep.
saying earlier. It's about being chosen. You're on display. You're in that dress. You have the diamond. Like, you finally in your life have been chosen and validated by a man, which we have been taught from, like, the earliest age ever is, like, the most important thing ever.
Right.
Even if our parents didn't directly say it, society has literally been screaming that in our faces forever.
Yep.
And I think, from my personal experience, that's where my desire to be married came from, is that I had had so many, like, bad relationships where, like, I was very much, like, not prioritized and treated very poorly, that I had decided, like, I want this thing, not because of, like, it makes logical sense, but because I wanted to feel, like, truly loved by someone.
Yeah.
And chosen by someone, and, like, someone finally, like, loved me the way that I loved them, because it's unfortunately, like, not really been the case.
Right.
But I think once I realized, like, what that was, and that I was looking to basically have someone tell me that I was, like, worthy of being loved or something like that, I was like, that's what kind of where I've been in, like, the past year and a half, is being like, that's fucking stupid. Like, I don't care anymore about, like, being chosen by a man and having a man think that I'm worthy of marrying him, when it's, you know, we just went over this in our last episode about emotional labor. Men benefit more from marriage. We don't. I don't know, like, do I think that maybe at some point in my life I might reconsider getting married? Maybe. But right now, like, I'm so put off by things like that. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll recover and get back into it, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely went through a lot of ups and downs with my ideas towards marriage, but for the longest time it was just like, no. It was a big no. But I think that I'm, like, I know more people who are putting a ton of emphasis on marriage than the opposite.
And I'm not even against marriage. I think it can be really great, but I think in most cases it's probably not, or it hasn't really seemed to have been very mutually beneficial to most people.
I just think people should get married when they're like 40, and then it'll be fine.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you, like, I don't feel like anyone knows who they are until somewhere around 30.
Yeah.
And if you don't, like you said, if you don't know who you are, how can you expect to know another person?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah, it's true. What's next? I feel like that was everything for marriage. Oh. Yeah, because I think we covered that in the other section. Don't you think?
I think so.
Okay, so this is, I think this is huge.
Massive.
This is, man, okay. So Romanticism unites love and sex. It basically, shows us in the media we're consuming, that in order to be in love, you have to be having, like, amazing sex, and that the amazing sex is, like, almost the center, or, like, the core of that connection.
And frequently, like, all the fucking time.
Yeah, and that's actually bullshit.
Yeah, and I don't feel like a lot of people want to hear that, because, like, there's other reasons why people put sex on a pedestal and all these different things, but this is something very unique to Romanticism, because prior to Romanticism, people were able to differentiate love and sex, and, like, it wasn't strange to think that you could love someone and not love to have sex with them, or want to have sex with them, or loving to have sex with someone but not being in love with the person. Like, these were very, like, normal separations.
Right.
But Romanticism made it to where, like, they're exactly the same. Like, basically, like, the sign or telling ability of what your love is are you having the most mind-blowing, mutually satisfying sex all the fucking time?
Right. And if you're not, that would be an indicator that your relationship is failing and that you are actually not in love.
And that's
There's
not
no
the
passion
one.
there. That's not the one. That's not your soulmate. Because if it was, then you would just magically have 2,000 orgasms every time you have sex with them.
You would line up perfectly regardless of your past, regardless of sexual trauma, regardless of emotional anything, stress, being sleep deprived, nothing.
You never have to ever have a conversation about what feels good and what doesn't. You don't have to talk about that.
Why would you? Because you're telepathic.
Right. Yeah. A big part of romanticism is being telepathic with each other.
Yeah. Like, I don't even have to tell him. He just knows.
He just knows.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't know.
If he acts like he knows, he Googled it.
Yeah.
So this can lead to lying to yourself and to your partner about the kind of sex that you're having because you feel really in love with this person. If the sex isn't matching up with that, then it could throw you into so much denial.
Denial is so a part of romanticism.
I'm sure that we have told each other about the mind-blowing sex we were having and it was not true. Like,
this is literally part of romanticism. This is a part of codependency.
Yeah.
And what these two things have in common is being in denial of reality.
Right.
And I literally remember this. I remember being like 21, 22, 23, I don't know, fucking know, somewhere in there. And being like, I have the best sex ever. Like,
me too.
Like, me and my boyfriend, like, we literally, like, no one has sex like we
No
do.
one is on this level.
You know what? A lot of people were because it wasn't good. Like,
yeah.
And that's another part of that's like with age, like, you know, if your like view of sex is only, you know, this big because you're 22 and you haven't had much experience.
Right.
You could very well believe that the sex that you're having is fucking mind-blowing and like passionate. But
or you could also just be like in the very, very back of your mind, you know that it's not, but you were lying to yourself so hard that you can't even tap into the back of your mind that knows the truth.
Yeah, and sadly that's literally one of those things that just comes with like aging, is being real with yourself about your life
or
experiences.
just getting fucking fed up with having bad experiences with partners.
Yeah.
But it also can prevent you, like, this idea that your sex life has to be so perfect and so amazing can lead to an inability to even have the kinds of conversations that would actually get you to a really good sex life. Like, because you won't want to admit that it isn't good in the first place.
And that's something that, like, psychologists will tell you, relationship counselors will tell you, like, anyone on this topic that's educated will tell you, is that good sex comes from communication.
Yeah.
If you aren't having conversations about what's going on, how you're feeling, even if it's emotionally or sexually, you aren't having good sex.
Right.
It's not
Zero.
going to happen.
Not at all. So, the flip side of that is that romanticism normalizes hypersexuality. So a feeling that you should be having lots and lots and lots and lots of sex, like even like multiple times a day, as an expression of love, and just like this feeling of like we can't keep our hands off each other. We're so passionate. Again, passion.
And that is normal in the beginning phase of a relationship for some people it's not.
Right.
But in the infatuation phase, remember, infatuation, not love.
Right.
It's very common to be hypersexual because honestly, it's just because the person is new.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
because they're new. Everything's exciting. Everything's at first. Totally normal.
Right.
But, like, when there's hypersexuality present later in a relationship beyond, like, the honeymoon phase, that's actually not, like, a telling sign about the strength of the relationship. There's a lot of different reasons why hypersexuality can be a thing.
One reason could be that it's all you have. That's the only thing that exists.
That's actually a big thing that psychologists will tell you too, is that in relationships where the couple's like time together or connection is more so majority and sexual, it's usually because they don't actually have a deeper connection.
Right.
Maybe they're really compatible sexually, but that doesn't have anything to do with your relationship or with love. And instead of like realizing like, wow, I actually like don't really have that much in common with this person, like we're not really connected on like a deeper level, you bury that and you fuel it into having sex all the time so that you can lie to yourself and say like, God, this is fucking incredible, like the passion.
Yeah.
You're just fucking.
It's like when there's like an awkward silence, like, and you have to just fill the silence, but it's with your whole relationship.
And
so you're just like, we'll just fuck all the time.
Yeah. Like I've experienced it firsthand, and I've seen it in so many other people's relationships. Like people that are like, yeah, we fuck like 5 times a day. They think that's a bragging point, but when you actually know more about relationships, you're like, count down till it's over.
Also, that sounds painful.
Like, yeah. That, and like, if you have a relationship of depth, you would have a stronger interest in doing things outside of sex.
Yeah.
And also hypersexuality could have nothing to do with your relationship. That's something that's...
It could be an addiction, like, separate from the other person.
And
like,
it's super common in people that have been sexually abused or raped.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually one of the most common side effects of, sexual abuse is being hypersexual in your relationships because, like, you were exposed to...
Right.
Sexual activity that was either against your consent or when you were too young, and now you translate intimacy with that, and there's all different reasons behind it. But anyways, what we're trying to say is like normalizing hypersexuality is normalizing something that has nothing to do with love.
Right.
It's very one-dimensional, it's very shallow, and it also could be trauma-based.
Yep. Also, if you are having great sex with your partner, you're not lying to yourself or to them about it, but it truly is really good. Because of romanticism, you could think, and I have thought this before, not like in the extreme, but I've kind of been there, like, the sex is really, really good, so this person, like, must be the person. Like, I have to work to fix everything else because this magical chemical connection, I'll never find it again.
I watch girls talk about this online and like just lie to themselves and be like, the sex is like, there's no one that can ever know my body like this.
Right.
No one can ever make me come like this. Like all these different things. And I'm really sorry to tell you, but that's bullshit because every single partner you have...
They can all learn that.
Basically, like, it's normal, like, you train them to understand your body. Everything that you have can literally be replicated with another person.
Right.
And I know no one wants to hear that.
It will be better when it's with a person who also is not abusive,
yes,
or isn't lazy or isn't neglecting you, whatever the toxic things are that you are excusing because the sex is good. When you find a person who you're in a healthy relationship with and then you have good sex with them, it will be better.
It's literally next level.
Yeah, it's a whole different level.
I just wish, like, it's almost like a desperation that takes place where women are like, because, finding sexual satisfaction with a man is really hard. So on one side, like, I can understand, but at the same time, like, you have to stop thinking that this person is the only person that will ever figure your body out.
Right.
And, like, know how to, like, make you have, like, multiple orgasms or whatever the fucking deal is. Every single man initially has to be trained how to figure out your body, and you know what? You can train the next one and you'll have pretty much the same sex.
Right.
Like, I know...
Or better.
Yeah, like, I really just wish women would understand that whatever you're having, like, it can be replicated because it's just listening and trying.
Right, exactly. And if that's not being replicated, then next, like,
yeah,
find someone else.
Just stop putting, like, sex with men up on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not worth it.
You can also have a sexual relationship with somebody, even repeatedly for a long period of time, and not be in love with them.
Yep.
And not be expected to be in love with them.
Yeah.
And not feel like you should be in love with them, but you aren't. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can also love someone a lot. You can even romantically love someone and not want to have sex with them.
Yeah, like...
And maybe that's complicated, maybe it's not. Everybody's different.
Your sex drive is, like, it's basically, like, on a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can be in love with someone, like, people that are asexual. Like,
right.
You can be in love with someone and not want to have sex with them.
Right.
You can be in love with someone and not want to have sex with them very often.
Right.
Love and sex are not synonymous, and I really think that people have got to start understanding this.
And
like,
sex is not an indicator of the health of your relationship. It can be, but it's not like this end-all be-all thing.
No. Like, we really need to start separating sex from love. Did I just take my lipstick off? I did.
It's all gone.
Bye. Is it gone?
Bye. No.
Okay.
It's there. You do have an eyelash though.
Oh God.
It's right here. I don't know. It's like right by your eye. Oh, it put mascara on you.
Oh.
It did. Romanticism proposes that true love must mean an end to all loneliness. So, we actually included like a direct quote from the article for this one because it was just too good. Romantics put a special premium on the idea that our partner might understand us without words. I can't tell you how many times, especially probably when I was like 21 till like 26, especially for these particular 5 straight years, that I just really thought, can you remember having this thought process before? It sounds like terrible, but like literally thinking, I don't want to tell them because then it won't be the same if I have to spell it out.
Fucking Sarah, I have the most embarrassing best example of this that I'm literally just sitting on until you give yours or whatever.
Oh my God.
It's horrible.
Oh my God. I mean, I feel like that was just my MO. So I'm trying to think of even specific examples because it could be like bedroom stuff, but it could also just be like my first serious boyfriend that wasn't like an abusive boyfriend. I wanted him to write me a love letter so fucking bad, but I didn't want to have to tell him to write me a love letter, so I would just try to like think it at him. Love letter, love letter, love letter.
Oh yeah, like using The Secret to like...
Yeah, like he'll know. And then like trying to just offhandedly be like, oh, I think that's really sweet, like about stuff like that when I would see it, to try to like drop hints.
Jesus.
And then eventually he never got the hint.
No, they don't.
And because he wasn't a romantic person, which is fine because now I'm not a romantic person. But I finally was like, I really want you to write me a love letter. You know, and then I just felt like an idiot.
Yeah, because then what's the value? Like,
because
you need
it's
to tell them.
stupid. And then when he finally did do it, which was way after I asked for it even, I was like, I hate it.
He's just like...
yeah, seriously. I think we broke up shortly after that.
I can relate so much that I'm literally just like seething in embarrassment.
That's one of my favorite human emotions.
Like... Literally 2 different examples.
I'm ready to throw up.
Okay. So when between the ages of 21 and 20, God, what the fuck? 20 and 24?
Uh-huh. Oh my God, maybe that was when I was 19. So allow me to backtrack and say probably age 15 to 26. Anyway.
I was in a very similar predicament where I wanted my partner to do something for me, but I would not tell them. I wanted my partner to write a song about me. And instead of ever saying anything that might indicate the interest in that, because I shouldn't have to do that, I wrote in my diary like all the fucking time about it. Like, I hope that on his album that he's recording that he'll write it, use a song about me. That would make me feel really good. I want him to do that about me.
Me.
And I wouldn't tell him, but then as time went on, I would start getting mad, thinking that it wasn't going to happen. So what I would do is I would literally leave my diary out.
Oh my God, that level of manipulation.
That conveniently turned to the page of me talking about that. Yeah! Like, who the fuck am I kidding? That's not subtle.
No. What if you like highlight, like,
yeah,
and I hope he writes a song about me.
With like an arrow sign, like pointing to the diary.
Yes.
Yeah, I did that. And let's like, fast forward, he ended up writing several songs about me, referring to me as a whore. So, dreams do come true. So that was example one.
Fuck.
And the one other example I want to give, only because it's so funny at my expense. I created a test in my head to determine if this person, now fast forward, I think I'm like 25, 26, I don't fucking know, different person, to really determine, like, are they the one for me? Instead of based on, like, I don't know, any kind of sign
Like,
that would show that.
Talking to them?
No. I drove myself to a very specific park in Los Angeles on the full blood moon, I believe. And I told myself, this person is not the person for me unless they show up at this park and find me underneath this moon. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you, real big spoiler. They didn't fucking show up! And I sat in the park being like, if we were connected by the moon and vampires and blah, 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 he would be here. He would know.
He would be here right now.
Without me even telling him.
Yes.
And I'm literally sitting there, and I remember checking my Facebook at the time, and he posted about the moon. And I was like,
That's it.
he's coming.
That's like...
Guess what? He didn't come, and literally that was the day I gave up. And I was like, no reconciling. Nope, you aren't the one for me because you didn't know with some weird vampire moon sense to find me in this park. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Romanticism.
Romanticism is a mental illness.
So, literally on that note, we wrote, creates a feeling that your partner should know you on a supernatural, soul-connected
Why
level.
didn't he know?
Meaning the need for discussion of desires, values, etc. is eliminated. You don't even need it. If you have a supernatural connection to someone, you can never talk. You don't need to ever talk.
Yeah, because we were supposed to be connected by the full blood moon.
Yeah, why would you ever talk?
Why?
You wouldn't
We
need
don't
to.
need to.
No, not at all. So, everything that ever needs to be resolved can be done so silently through telepathy.
I like to call it vampire speak.
Yeah, you
it's-
can just vampire speak your problems away.
Yeah.
And you won't even know that you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like what it's like when you find the one, right?
Yes.
I believed that.
Oh my god. No, seriously, I believed that too. And the problems that I did have, especially in like, honestly, the most like romantic feeling relationships I've had were like literally ones that were involved like sneaking around at night in secret. No one can know about this. It's forbidden. And that all somehow added to a feeling of like being able to read each other's minds. But really it was just because I was with like other fucked up people who were also like, we're reading each other's minds.
Yeah, it's like crazy desperate people
Yeah.
meeting crazy desperate people.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Feels so great and is so the opposite of great.
No, it's fucking stupid, I can tell you from experience.
It's fucking dumb.
God.
And you will find yourself waiting
in
alone.
a park.
Man, I can tell you also, one of those people who was very wrapped up in romanticism, who, remember how bad I wanted that fucking love letter? Well, after that person, I spent a lot of time with someone who wrote me love letters all the time. Hated them. He was like a stalker and obsessed, but that didn't stop me from, regularly seeing him.
Yeah, of course not.
Naturally.
I mean, why would it?
That person so desperately believed in bullshit romanticism type love that he would write in his letters like, just show up in this, X spot at this time and we'll run away together, type of stuff.
Jesus.
And part of me would be like, yes, it'll work. Yeah, that's how love works. We'll just run away together and we'll just be on the fucking streets and we'll just figure it out.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah. And then later, like, it being in functional relationships that felt boring, I would think back to that person and be like, maybe I should still just call them up and run away.
That's what sucks.
That's more romantic.
the emotions, the chemical releases that come with the chaos and the toxic shit, it is intoxicating.
Yes.
But then when you're with someone who truly does like love you and is creating like a healthy environment for you guys to have a relationship in, it does in comparison feel boring. And if you have relied on those chemical releases to be like what you associate with love and like how to show someone you care about them or like how to have good sex, without it you feel lost, you feel like something's wrong,
Right.
And that's how people self-sabotage their relationships.
Absolutely. That was me over and over again. It can also lead to feeling really possessive, because if the other person is like your solution to loneliness, you'll want to be around them all the time and control their actions.
Yep.
And it also means that you should never feel attracted to anyone else, and your partner should never feel attracted to anyone else, because you can read each other's minds, you're addicted to each other, you only have eyes for each other.
Yeah, you basically somehow don't find other human beings attractive.
That connection just gets cut off.
Yeah.
Like you get unsynced from that in the universe.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
That's where like toxic monogamy comes into play.
Yep.
Like, have you guys ever like witnessed someone that like, I almost choked on edamame, that like literally flips their fucking shit if another person like hits on or speaks to their significant other, like they cannot rationalize it. That type of rage comes from ownership.
Yeah.
That's like literally when you consider someone an object
Right.
that is yours. There's no rationale, there's no understanding that you don't own that fucking person.
Right.
Other people are allowed to find them attractive, and those things shouldn't bother you.
Right.
Because if you're like keeping boundaries in your relationship, why would that fucking matter?
Right. Exactly.
But like the whole like, if you talk to my boyfriend, I'll beat your ass type of thing, or vice versa.
That's so
It's fucking
obnoxious.
That's like the biggest sign that your relationship actually doesn't have any strength.
Exactly. And also, don't be against other women. Like,
Yeah.
just don't. We're not each other's enemies. And, you know, if you talk to a man who just like is appearing single and his girlfriend comes out of nowhere and is like, don't fucking talk to him. Or the opposite, if it's a man talks to a woman and her boyfriend comes out of nowhere and is like, what are you doing talking to my woman? No, nobody belongs to anybody else.
Yeah, and that, and like, there's so many different ways to look at it, because in one way, I think that a lot of like men and women get unfairly upset when they get shut out of a person's life because they have a significant other.
Right.
Because they make it sound like the other person's psycho and controlling them. But really it could just be like a pretty normal boundary that's being put into place because like they're exclusive and maybe you have a sexual history or like whatever. So it's like there's two different sides. Like maybe you're the person who's been shut out. Well, maybe you have a history with that person that's really kind of not appropriate to continue. And so it's super weird that you don't take any responsibility or understanding in that. But then the other side of that is like thinking that someone belongs to you, to where like it's a massive threat if someone so much as speaks to them. That's not about the other person that you're worried about talking to them. That's like you're worried about your partner doing something with them, which is a trust issue.
Right.
It doesn't really have to do with another person.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I feel like it's almost glamorized, especially online, for like women to be ready to beat other people's asses that like even so much as look at their partner. And like, one, your partner really isn't that great. Like, take your fucking mediocre boyfriend off the pedestal you put him on. Really, probably no one wants him. Two,
even if they are great, they're probably only that great to you.
Yeah, like in the grand scheme of things, they're really not that special. And two, like, my God, just you're acting like that person is like, I don't even know.
I just think it's weird to always be suspicious. I understand if you have a history of, you know, past partners being unfaithful and stuff like that, but again, that's not to be taken out on the other, like, third party. Like, just have that conversation with your partner, and if that third party needs to be, like, cut out, then yeah, take that step. And if that person's not respecting that boundary, then that's a whole other issue.
We put all wounds, issues, everything can and will be resolved by or with your partner. This is what a lot of broken people do. They get into relationships with people instead of doing the work on themselves and addressing their mental health needs, and they expect the other person to somehow make these issues subside or be more bearable or like be, I don't know, the band-aid on everything.
Yeah.
That's not what people are. People are not band-aids. They're not drugs. If you have like deep-seated issues or cycles that have been present through like, you know, significant periods of your life, a person is not going to solve that. It is your responsibility to solve that. And people keep using people as a means to an end instead of get your fucking shit together.
And if you do really love your partner, don't use them as like a guinea pig to sort out your issues on.
It's so cruel and it's so self-centered.
Yeah, and you may not know that you're operating that way. I know I didn't, and I have operated that way a lot of times in the past, but you really owe it to your partner and to yourself to separate your relationship from the work you have to do.
Yep, agreed.
You can still be really depressed and be dealing with, you know, a lot of personal dilemmas while also being happy in a relationship. Like, you can have a lot of shit going on behind the scenes, but your relationship doesn't have to be touched by that and affected by that. Obviously, struggling with something like depression, anxiety, you know, money, stress, whatever it may be, can put strain on a relationship.
They most likely will, yeah.
And they will, but it's not like, you don't have to resolve it with your partner. Your partner doesn't have to resolve it for you. You can separate those issues out from your relationship, especially if your relationship doesn't really have anything to do with the cause. Say like, I'm depressed because I've experienced some kind of loss, and that's putting strain on my relationship because I'm not able to, you know, function normally because I'm too depressed. Like, that's not my partner's job to fix.
No, I mean, they can help support you and like aid you in it, but it's not your partner's now new responsibility to cure your depression and make you functional again.
But romanticism would tell you the opposite. Romanticism shows that when your partner is down, you're gonna like do whatever it takes to, you know, pick them up and carry them and make sure they're okay. But that actually isn't romantic at all. That's just codependent.
That's caretaking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that a lot of times people like, they use relationships to be like a one fix all instead of going to fucking therapy.
It's all about therapy.
I really don't think that it matters like if you love someone, because if there are certain things,
Love doesn't matter.
it doesn't.
Prime example of thinking that love will conquer all. I moved in with someone literally after 3 or 4 months because we were so in love. When we were moving in, his dad came and helped and literally said to me, "Are you sure you want to do this? He is very messy." Like, literally said that. And I was like, oh my goodness!
Whip him into shit. Like, bleh.
In conclusion, I still love Twilight and love triangles.
I'm obsessed with love triangles.
Me too.
If there's a new show, movie, book, anything that's about like a girl and 2 guys in a love triangle, I'm fucking hooked.